Hey, visionaries! You are now tuned in to the Starts with a Vision podcast, where everything you do in life starts with a vision. If your vision is clear or foggy, you are in the right place. It's time to go take what's yours, because there's a vision only you can see, and a dream only you can dream. And now, your host, Mr. Starts with a Vision.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Isaiah Fowler, aka Mr. SWAV, and welcome to another episode of the Starts with a Vision podcast. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. We are 300 plus episodes strong, and today we're going to be talking on how to kind of kill YouTube, how to create your own niche, how to, find a blue ocean inside of this whole business world, this business realm. So today's guest is Curtis King, and what I like about him is he's very, very unique. He's found a niche, and it's really, really worked for him. And, he's going to talk about everything that he's overcome to do it. And a lot of times people say, this person blew up overnight, but, for Curtis, it was a long night. And, we're going to really dive deep into that. And I just really like what he's doing. I respect what he's built, and I respect what he stands for as well, because he's been very, very creative in his time, right, along his journey, just carving out his niche. So Curtis is a musician, and what he's done is, he's created a YouTube channel, and not just a YouTube channel, but a platform, and he's teaching other musicians and producers how the business side of music, right? How to, build your email list as a musician and stuff like that, so that you're not depending on a record label or that big deal, because it's a lot harder to get a big deal instead of just going independent and making moves on your own. So, you're going to like this interview. You're going to like this one. So today's guest is Curtis King. What's going on, world, man? You already know what time it is. This is Isaiah Fowler, a.k.a. Mr. SWAV. And let me tell you guys something. Are you guys ready for this? I'm going to pause real quick, and I'm going to ask you, are you ready for this? All right, so we got Curtis King on the line today. Let me tell you about Curtis. Curtis has a YouTube channel, and he got chastised when he started this YouTube channel, but nobody really saw the vision. But now he is a music producer, and he's teaching other people how to produce their own music, and he's created a whole niche that is it's a complete blue ocean. He's in a league of his own, and we're going to talk about how he built this brand up, how he transitioned, and so many other things entrepreneurially, of course. So without further ado, Curtis, how you doing today?
I'm good. How you doing, brother?
Man, all is well, man. I really want to say thank you for the time, man. Thank you for taking out the time to share with everybody how you've built this incredible brand up to this point.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my story, as well as share with your platform. This is a great honor, so I really appreciate you as well.
Absolutely, man. So are you, I know there's a lot, but are you a music producer, a music artist? Like what exactly is your title now, and was it different before?
So my title is I wear too many damn hats. That's the first. That's the first thing. And I'm actually learning the power of delegating some of these things. But traditionally, what I've been known as is a rapper and a producer. Mm-hmm. As time has gone on, I've transitioned into becoming a luminary, which is somebody who inspires, somebody who motivates their peers, and that became my title. Once I really had been in the industry for about 10 years, and I still consider myself in the industry, just in another part of the industry, the music industry. But initially, I was just a rapper and a producer. I started off in my grandmother's patio, and really, that's where I met folks like Ab Soul before he signed to Top Dog Entertainment, and I transitioned from making beats on a PlayStation with a video game called MTV Generator to one day eventually transitioning to producing for shows on MTV and VH1, and then eventually Kendrick Lamar and Ab Soul and E40 and just all these different entities. And really, like I said, my tradition was within the industry, but then I just didn't feel fulfilled. And, sort of the way life works sometimes, it pushed me into another calling besides just music, which was to share my knowledge, to teach my peers, because I felt like there was a void in my industry of information that was actually good information and not just some random guy from this random state making a blog post that went viral. It really was a need for great information. And so I started sharing it on YouTube and grew it in about a year, grew it from about 2,000 subscribers to, now we're sitting up here at 30,000 and over 2.5 million views total. And it's just been a beautiful journey to be able to squeeze those numbers out of a very niche market.
Right. Very niche market. And I mean, to be honest, I didn't even think there were that many people interested in music producing, but I know you take a different angle at it, and it's not just like, hey, make this beat this way. I know it's you and your personality, so that attracts more people. But I think that's very interesting, man. The niche in itself is super niche down, but you're maximizing that small niche.
Right. I mean, you got to understand, as much as you thought that there wasn't an audience for it, I dived in that water. It's almost like you looked at that water and was like, yo, I don't know if that's more than 3 feet, Curtis. You should. Right. And that's exactly what happened, is that I jumped in and really I had to swim my way through hundreds of views. It was only hundreds of views in the beginning, 200 views, 300 views. I got the comments of people saying, who are you and how can you give me information? But really what happened was, in very much the same way that people are listening to me right at this moment, it was a podcast that I was put on to that interviewed entrepreneurs. And really what I learned was that of these multimillionaires, one common denominator when the questionnaire asked them, what are your streams of income? Because he would ask them the same questions every time. One of the common threads was that they all had one stream of revenue that was teaching. So I learned that, okay, well, teaching is a form of revenue, but I still didn't understand the concept of why that sort of pays off in the universe, why these people are so, abundant, and why, they are in the positions they are. Because especially in hip hop, we're looked at, if you're teaching, people are looking at you like you were the guy that couldn't make it. Those who teach can't do, is what that old cliche is that I never agreed with. And so that's sort of the mentality. And what I saw was these multimillionaires. I'm like, how can they have time to teach? And then I read a book called The Go-Giver, and that changed my whole mindset about the idea of giving. It's not just the nice thing to do. It's not just the good thing to do. It is that, but it's also a prerequisite before success. You have to give some kind of value, and value is something different. Some people think value, they may immediately think money. No, value can be, if you were a kid, and you wanted these Ken Griffey Jr. shoes when you were 12, just like I did, and you get up to you're 25 now and you can afford to buy them. So you couldn't afford them then, and they're $500. You may go and buy those shoes because the value of it is so high. The memory and the value of that is so high that you'll go buy that. That's the thing about it, is that I had to figure out what kind of teaching and what kind of value I was going to offer. And when I started to say, okay, I talk to every rapper. I'm going to talk to what I call rappreneurs and producer-neurs. However many there is out there, I know that there's a lot out there that want to handle this business in a professional manner and do desire to go into business for themselves. So that's really what brought me to here today.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy, but it's a lot. And there's like so many different questions that are brewing in my mind. But I think the first one I want to say is, when you said The Go-Giver, so I read that book, and I know the author has a few other ones like The Energy Bus and stuff like that. But when we want to talk about giving, now, I think that is one of the most powerful things that you can ever do. People listening know that when I started my podcast, I wasn't in the best place, and so I was just giving a whole bunch of energy and information, because that's kind of what you do sometimes. You just need to give. But how do you give, or how have you learned to give without getting burned out? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think it goes back to one of my favorite speakers to listen to is Tony Robbins. And I think that I gave sort of a truncated version of what happened. The one big part that I left out that happened during my transition from going from, people got to understand, it wasn't that I was an artist that was, sort of struggling in what I was doing. I was actually finding success. One of the biggest hip hop publications, Hip Hop DX, said I had one of the top 25 albums of 2015. And this was before I made, sort of my transition to the work that I'm doing now. So things were looking great. They were looking awesome, but I just wasn't fulfilled. And, one of the things I did along with listening to that podcast, with reading that book, The Go Giver, I went to a Tony Robbins conference called Unleash the Power Within. It's a 3.5-day conference. You really don't have time to go eat, but he's really making you, circulate water through your system, and you're learning the way that your body works. You're learning the way that energy works. You're learning why certain things have sort of been a blockage in your success and your route towards getting where you want to get with your goals. And it's really just a life-changing experience. 3.5 days I went through that, and I came back a completely different man. That energy helped me establish why I didn't get burned out. That energy is, what is my why? When I figured out what my why was, my why initially was, okay, these folks in the industry think I'm crazy, or they think that I've lost my mind, or they think that this is not something that's worthy of somebody's attention. I looked at this and saw a void, and I said, no, if somebody comes in here, not only can they be ultra successful doing this, they can honestly shift the culture in a way that they'll have an impact for the rest of their life. And somebody else's like I'll give you an example. You'll never forget the person that taught you how to ride a bike or tie your shoes. You may know them by first and last name because that teaching was so important. So if I stepped into this position and I said, I'm going to teach rappers how to create their own email list, how to make your first email list, just this little basic things like that, or how to approach somebody that you want to network with and not look thirsty. And really, I figured out a way to do it because I've been in the industry for, at that point, like I said, about 10 years. I knew this industry like the back of my hand, so it wasn't a stretch about anything. I was just really having conversations out loud in front of a camera. But I'll tell you this. My turning point was when I did a video basically called The Biggest Lie in Hip Hop, where I talked about the same thing I tell you about, what we're taught about teaching is completely wrong. And that, if you do put yourself to teach, this is what all cultures do to thrive and survive. So then I did that video, right, with my iPhone. Mind you, I didn't have music videos on red cams and all these beautiful fancy cameras. I did a video on my iPhone, and within 24 hours, it had about 70,000 views. Never had a music video that did that. Never had songs that did that. Just went viral, right? And then I'm like, okay, maybe it's a fluke. So then I do a video about Facebook algorithm and how folks got to stop, spamming and putting 100 people in one post. And then that video goes off and it does like 60,000 in 24 hours. And it's just shares and shares. People are like, man, I wish more people would do this. When I established the why, my why was, I want to position myself as a leader within this industry. And on top of that, I want to provide value to people who are desperately looking for that information. What would I do for myself when I was 17? What kind of person would I be that would be able to give tremendous value to my 17-year-old self? And then when I decided that was my why and what I wanted to do, it was unrelenting. Since that point, I released about 600 videos from my channel and other channels within a 2-year period. Just because I just get up every morning and I say, look, this is my work. This is what I want to do. This is my purpose. This fulfills me. Tony Robbins says we have 6 needs as human beings, but the 2 needs that make us happy are basically contributing and also what is the other one? It's contributing and it's also growing. As long as we're growing and contributing, we're going to forever be happy. Right. So this is what does it for me.
Dang, man. So you said a lot there, and you also said that you were in a good place. Things were looking good for you. Things were growing for you. The album was going high and everything like that. So my question is, and it's a little bit of a packed question, but
sure.
What was the biggest difference between who you were then and who you are now?
I wasn't fulfilled. So even though things were looking great, even though people were singing my praises about, oh man, you're doing so well in this industry. This album is amazing. It was an album called Raging Waters, and people were just, really giving a lot of props to it. I did not feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like I was living my purpose. I felt like it was all centered on me. And meanwhile, I felt like, what do most rappers do when they're sort of a middle-aged rapper. At that time, I was about 30. And I figured, what do rappers do here? They focus on themselves. And why do they fall off? Because they focus on themselves so much that they forget about their core audience. So then I started saying, okay, at this point where really I should be focused on, pushing everything forward for myself, the hardest thing for me to do was give. And when I read The Go Giver, I said, this is what I have to do in order to seek my fulfillment. And I tell you, when I saw that the same feelings that I would have got from having a packed stadium of people screaming my name and singing my songs, it became the same feeling that I had when I had a YouTube page full of people who are saying, yo, man, you just changed my life. Yo, this information, nobody else would have done this. The way that you explained it was so easy. Man, I never forget you when I blow up. I'm going to make sure I mention your name because you're so important to my career. Like when you hear those things on a daily basis, what do you have to complain about? How could you not be happy? So really the biggest difference between who I was before and then was that I was never really a selfish person. Like I always looked out for other people, but my career had got me in a place where I was so depressed about every little failure or every little thing that happened that I called a failure or I called a setback, that I figured out I was too centered on myself, too centered on me. So when I opened that up and then I started focusing on the individuals around me and their needs, I started realizing nobody else is fulfilling those needs. And at this point in time, I'm in a place where the OGs who should have been the ones teaching, they're not going to do it because they're looking at the young ones like, these young bucks won't teach me how to open up a SoundCloud page. Right. They won't teach me how to network or not network, but how to do my social media advertising on Instagram. And then meanwhile, the young bucks are like, well, you wouldn't teach me how to rap. So here I am stuck in the middle, like, okay, well, they'll both listen to me because one, I'm not too old for the young heads, and I'm not too young for the old heads to be like, I'm not too old for the young heads, and I'm not too young for the old heads to be like, yo, we don't think that you know what you're talking about. So I was in a grand position to do what I had to do. It was just really about stepping up and stepping up to the plate and taking care of that responsibility.
Yeah, man. And that's some deep stuff right there. And that's very, very, very real as it is, because what you're doing is literally nobody in the music industry has done what you're doing. So, in another 2 years or so, you're going to start seeing other music producers popping up with the structure and, trying to emulate exactly what you're doing. And we're all going to know that you're the grandfather of this niche. Right?
I appreciate that.
That's cool. So my other question is, as a music artist, you were independent, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, I love the word absolutely. I love how you answered that. He said, ain't nobody taking my intellectual property.
Always. You already know.
Yeah, absolutely. So you say, so you were independent and you were a music artist. So, were there any similarities of you growing as an independent music artist and you growing this YouTube channel as well? Like, you get what I'm saying? Because me personally,
it's a big correlation.
Yeah. What talk about that correlation?
Okay, well, I think initially with anything, I learned this from a book called Failing Forward. One of my favorite books. I can't remember the author. John C. Maxwell. Mm-hmm. So Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. He talks about there's a process of success no matter what industry you're in, no matter what you're doing. And really to kind of give a shortened version of it, he says initially you come into doing something new and people think you're stupid for this idea. Your idea is stupid, or what you're doing is stupid. And it's the same thing as an independent artist as it is doing the work that I'm doing now. So initially people think you're stupid. Okay. Secondly, you actually are stupid because you're making mistakes and you're trying to find your way through it. Thirdly, people start to say, well, he might be stupid, but he works hard. So then they call you a hard worker. And then initially from being a hard worker, you really get into, well, he's pretty knowledgeable about what he's doing. And then after the knowledgeable section, there is, where they deem you the genius. So that's a shortened version of what he explained. But understanding that everything has a process, it was no different from me trying to gain respect as a rapper or as a producer. In the beginning, me telling my mom, look, I'm going to become a professional music producer and I'm going to start on a PlayStation. She looked at me crazy.
Right.
You're gonna do what? And a PlayStation 1 at that. The same game that housed Tomb Raider and Crash Bandicoot.
Right.
You know,
right.
How do you tell that to your mom? Even worse than that, how do you tell that to your pops, who is a college professor?
Oh yeah.
My pops was a college professor, and he's like, look, what do you mean you're not going to college so you can pursue music full time and work at Quiznos part time? What are you talking about?
Right.
It just sounded crazy. And I'm pretty sure it's the same way a lot of these kids sound when they tell their parents they want to go, become millionaires on YouTube. It's just that it's happening now. For me, I had to understand everything is a process. So I always told myself, I said, as long as I'm patient with myself, as long as I continue to see the vision, even if I got to continuously remind myself and write down my goals, revisit my goals, wake up in the morning and wake up earlier than anybody else just to do things, and not feel ashamed or not have to explain myself, then I was going to do that. Even if it mean, staying up extra late just to do this, sitting by that nightlight during this process, no matter what it was, I knew that if I stayed the course and did what most people would have done, most people would not have done and would have abandoned the course. Oh, we're going to be fine. Right. And sure enough, it happened where those same people who were chastising me, those same people who told me I was crazy, now are starting to come back into the circle and they're seeing the vision. Oh, this is what you meant. And that's when I realized this. And it's a quote that I've lived by for years. And I told myself this years ago. I said, if you are blessed with the vision, you're also burdened with the responsibility of that vision.
Whoa. This is what I need you to do. I need you to say that again for everybody listening right now.
So if you are blessed with the vision, you are simultaneously burdened with the responsibility of that vision. So many of times we get a vision so vivid and we exert most of our energy trying to explain it to other people. It's not their vision. That's not their blessing. That's not their God-given vision. You've been given that vision. If you're exerting most of that information, if you're exerting most of that time trying to get other people on board to understand it, you're not doing the work that you're supposed to be doing with that vision. So I had to understand that instead of me trying to explain it to my parents, I had to get feet to pavement and get this work done. And once I get the work done, it's crazy. Like once I really started as a young producer trying to get placements, I didn't get placements, but then I got Van Skateboarding Company used my music within their skateboard videos that they had like a skateboard DVD, and they used my music and I got a paycheck for it. And I showed it to my pops. My pops was like, that's what I'm talking about. That's good. Okay. Right. Do more of that to make yourself have a living in this.
Right. Do more of that. Like, that's cool, but I need to see more.
Exactly. One check, one $300 check is not going to help you when it comes to, it's going to help a little bit when it comes to rent, but you can't live off of that. So I understood what he was saying. It was just more that I had to understand that this was my vision, and people that you love, people that are the closest to you, sometimes those are the ones that can't see it. It's hardest for them to see it because they got an obstructed view of you. They've seen you since they were, changing your diapers. They've seen you since you were producing in a patio. Their view of you is a whole lot different than somebody on the outside who's like, yo, I can see that vision. But either way, if they see it or not, it doesn't matter. You have to exert that energy towards actually bringing it to fruition. And then also, too, spending it on yourself, because sometimes it's really easy to be discouraged by your outside environment. And, how do you look out? I remember there was a time where I couldn't afford to buy toilet paper. How can I look in that situation and look around and say, one day I'm going to turn this into a 6-figure business? No, how do you do that? You have to be crazy. You have to be a little bit off or have a vision that is so vivid and so clear that you refuse not to pursue it.
Absolutely, man. That's what it's all about. That's what dreams are made of right there. Like,
absolutely
sticking to the vision. That's why this is the Starts With a Vision podcast, because that vision is so important to a person's success, in my opinion. So that's very, very, very important. Sticking to the vision no matter what. Saying that I'm gonna be a multimillionaire even when you can't afford that toilet paper pack that's probably only $3. Right? Like, right. I get it 100%. And honestly, you was probably talking about the off-brand kind. You couldn't even afford the off-brand kind.
I'm talking about going to the liquor store buying toilet paper.
See, that's a whole other level right there. We're not talking about Charmin. We talking about
Charmin would have been real nice.
Right, exactly, man. We talking about the stuff that's gonna cut your skin. We couldn't even afford that. Right. So as an artist, How did you make money? Can you talk about just the different ways that an artist can make money in terms of, royalties and whatever else, and
Sure.
like what's worth your energy?
Sure. So as an artist, I found, well, I'll say this for starters, just so I make sure that I kind of help folks understand where most of my money comes from. As of today, most of my money comes from being sort of a what they call a leasing producer in my industry. So it's basically somebody who, instead of selling their beats flat out to a Drake or a Meek Mill, they basically develop a website. It's an e-commerce business. They develop a website. They make all their production available, different formats like MP3, Wave, and what they call trackouts. And they basically have different sales points, and they make it available to the general public at a very low rate. So say I have an MP3 for $30. I can get an artist that comes in from North Dakota. He pays for that. He leases the beat, same way you would lease a vehicle. He leases that beat, and then another rapper from New York can come in and lease that same beat. So that business is really where I earn most of my income from. So initially, when I first started off, I was an artist and producer, and I wasn't generating income as a leasing producer. I was really trying to get placements because that's where the big money was at. But as a rapper, really when you generate your income, at that time was through physical copies of CDs. It was through getting booked for shows. It was through merchandise. It was through online and offline merchandise. It was through, sometimes music sales online and offline. Streaming wasn't really as big as it was then. But today that's transitioned to pretty much the same thing, except that you just exchange the physical CDs, which I still kind of sell a lot of those, but you exchange the physical CDs with streaming money and digital sales. But really my main streams of income today come from me as a producer. That's really my primary focus. Even though I just finished a project as an artist, it just becomes where I get to be my own angel investor because of my work as a producer. I get to be my own angel investor because rap requires so much money to funnel through just to kind of get your head above water.
Right. And I heard, I remember I was watching an interview with French Montana on the Breakfast Club. Mm-hmm. Man, he said, that song Unforgettable?
Yeah.
Man, he said he put like $450,000-$500,000 into that one song.
Easy.
I was like, man. But he said he made that back like times 10.
Now, can you imagine the folks that are spending a fraction of that and not seeing any of it back?
Right. How
scary the idea, the concept. But that to me, that there's a lot of similarities with that and really the risk that you take with becoming an entrepreneur. I can't remember exactly who said it, but I love the example of an entrepreneur is basically somebody who jumps out of a plane or jumps off a mountain and tries to build a plane on the way down. Mm-hmm. That understanding that it's the same thing when it comes to taking risk within this with your own money, mm-hmm. and you just have to do it. I'll never forget. I was watching an episode of Shark Tank, and one of my favorite shows to watch. And I was watching the episode. It was an episode where there was a music manager coming on, basically trying to get the investors to invest equity into his rock band, and every single one of them laughed. Mm-hmm. They laughed at the concept because they said the music business is a oh man, that's a crapshoot. Nobody wants to invest money into that. I would do that just to have a fun investment in my portfolio, but I would never think of it making me money.
Right.
And so when I saw that, I was like, if these are multimillionaires that look at, and I don't want to keep making them be like they're like the gods of our industry or the gods of our society, but if you do wish to attain that level of success, you can't turn a deaf ear to that. Right. So then when I saw them laughing at that, I said, okay, is that what the perception of the industry is? Okay, then what is the difference between them and between us? And why is our industry one that you cannot have that kind of growth? And initially, one of the ideas that I had is this concept of teaching and how most of our success stories feel like they're too good to teach. I think a lot of folks are changing that culture, but they feel like they're too good to teach. They feel like I don't have time. What do you mean go teach, FL Studio classes? I'm too big right now. My name is popping and I got to keep my momentum going. Mm-hmm. But I think that culture is shifting now, thankfully.
Yeah, and that's real big because I remember who's your favorite independent artist?
My favorite independent artist? It's a good question. I mean, as of today, like the newer artist is Chance the Rapper.
Okay. Because I remember I was listening to this one song. It was by Nipsey Hussle, and that's my favorite independent artist. Just because I'm from Cali, I like Nipsey Hussle. I like everything he stands for. I love the business mentality to go along with the music and the talent and everything like that. But he said, we need to create more. He said it in a song, so he said it real fast. But basically, he was saying that we need to create more, institutions and or community centers to teach people about royalties and equity and ownership of your intellectual property.
Yeah, I mean, because how many times are we going to go through the cycle of, I don't want to see a new generation of TLC and NWA movies. I love the production of those movies. I love the stories of their coming up, but I hate that part of every single one of those movies where they get to the contracts and they talk about how badly these artists were done. And it puts us in positions where we come up and it's natural to feel like we're the victim. And I feel like that's not you can't come from a place of power. Like you can't become the victor playing the victim. It's just not possible. So I look at a lot of artists like, okay, I understand why you're not getting this information, even though we have a lot more access to things. I understand, you don't know who to trust and whatnot, but then I'm disappointed in my peers. And that was another reason why I kind of turned my back on the industry, because I'm disappointed in my peers who they know somebody had to teach them, but they're so like, they act like, they really are trying to act like, I guess, sort of how some aspects of the tech world are, where they got this new invention and they want to kind of keep it on under wraps until it's, that's how a lot of rappers are acting. But it's like this information has been out here. There is no institution. You learn from somebody and somebody can learn from that person too. I always compare it to a chef. Like Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart knows that if she gives you her recipe book, she'll give you every single item in that recipe book. She'll even give you the pots to make it in. She is not afraid of you opening up a restaurant next to hers and calling it Carte de Tour or something. She's not afraid of that because she knows that her value increases the more that she gives.
Exactly. Because more people are going to give you the credit for even getting them to that point. So all fingers are always going to be pointing back to you in the best light possible anyways.
So that's the message I'm trying to convey to my peers is that, don't look at teaching like this is something you do when you're over the hill. Don't look at teaching as, oh, man, the game is to be sold and not told. And it's like, come on, bro. Like that. I understand what it means. Of course, being within the hip hop culture, I completely understand what it means. But that's pimp talk.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that doesn't encompass the many folks out here who are teachers. My respect these days for teachers is through an all-time high, because I know what it takes, to really convey a very complex topic and make it simplified to, an audience of 30 kids. I can't even imagine, doing that on a daily basis, what that means. I do that now in the capacity of producers and rappers, but even then, like I still have so much respect, because that's the message I'm conveying to my peers. Look, this is not something that you're not giving away anything. What you're doing is you're providing value, and in turn, you're becoming more valuable. And the more valuable you become, the more longevity you have, because people will always remember your contribution.
100%, man. I wish more people could hear that, but that is exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And that is exactly why, you're doing it at the level that you're doing it, because, it would be different if, your packaging was horrible and nobody was really watching you and you're like, yeah, I'm doing this and this is the thing. But like what you're saying, if we go to your YouTube channel right now, it speaks for itself, because I can tell nobody's doing that in the industry because of how, successful and how popular your channel and you have grown to be. And I think that that's very, very, very interesting, man. Very interesting.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Sincerely.
I would definitely say, man, of course, keep it going and continue to do things that are different inside of that niche and inside that industry, and merging the two in terms of business / entrepreneurship and music producing. And, you're going to just continue to be more successful, because nobody's talking about conversions and, marketing yourself online and all of that stuff,
Right. But that's the interesting, and I really appreciate those words. It's coming from you. It is an honor. And what I'm learning is that, it's funny because when I first approached this information, I thought, okay, I need to share the information that's valuable to me. And what I realized is that a lot of folks are not even desiring that. They want to know the bare basics. They want to know, hey, Curtis, how do I approach somebody famous when I'm in the club? Oh, okay, well, you talk to them this way and say this to them and don't do this. And okay, cool. That's what they want to know. They don't really want to, I still share, strategies for, how to get the best conversions on your Facebook ads and what kind of Facebook ads actually draw the right attention and calls of action and these things that really, when I was getting my entry level marketing certificate, these things were just stuff that we were taught in the very first months. But I share this knowing, this is why it's valuable. And it's not just me like repeating information. I'm really telling myself again, look, this is the importance of this information too. Like you can't change the game until you learn the rules, until you remember the rules, until you embed the rules, until they're in you and you say, you know what, these are me. Now I can start breaking the mold on them. And I feel like that's what's happening, is that the more that I share it, the more that I start to feel like, okay, certain aspects of this, I'm repeating myself. And that's when I start to understand, no, these are just my philosophies. These are just what my particular principles are. And I'm sharing it. I'm keeping it going, and I don't feel any pressure from competition. Matter of fact, the folks that would be competition, we're all sort of in collaboration in some aspect. We're all friends. From folks like, if anybody wants to know more people who are doing this, like Game from BusyWorks TV, or there's a guy named Superstar O, and these are all music producers who take their time out to share their information with the audience that is they're just eager to learn. They want to learn. They're here for it. It's just nobody was taking the time to do it, and everybody who was trying to upsell them on everything. And it's crazy. I spent a year giving this information. There was no catch. There was no, email funnels or anything like that. And then after a year of doing that, I asked them for one thing. I said, look, I want my album to go, as a rapper, I want my album to go number 10 on the iTunes charts. And the way that we're going to do that, we got to get crazy pre-order sales. Would you know that audience pushed my rap album to number 4 in the hip hop charts? You know what I mean? So they pushed me from the highest I had ever been before was number 40 on my own work. And that was a lot of footwork I had to put in. I really ran a 1-month campaign via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And they pushed my album because I offered them value. I said, look, if you show me proof of you purchasing this pre-order album, I will give you my FL Studio beginners course. If you don't know, FL Studio is, for music producers, they use this program called FL Studio. So I said, I'll offer you my beginners course for that. Other people, I said, I'll give you my free drum kits. Other people, I said, I'll give you a free beat. Just show me proof that you did that. And just really over delivering on the value. And man, these folks rose me up there. I was above Drake. I was above J. Cole. I was above Big Mill. I was, up there as number 4 album on the hip hop iTunes charts. And it's mind boggling. So now with this same momentum, my next goal is to push it to number 1. And I know it's going to be done.
That's what's up, man. What's your stage name?
Curtis King.
Oh, so okay.
So Curtis King Beats. If anybody wants to get familiar with really who I am, Curtis King is really the rapper. Curtis King Beats is really the name for as a producer, but both of those websites are sort of joined together as curtisking.com and then curtiskingbeats.com.
Okay. And so let's go back for a minute. You mentioned, you said, I remember one time I couldn't buy the toilet paper, man. So, in that moment, how do you get over the fact that you can't,
right.
You don't have any money. You feel helpless. You're low-key depressed.
Right.
You're low. You don't really know what's next. How do you overcome that?
Well, to kind of give some backstory on that situation. Before I was there, I was living with my mom and my sisters in Rancho Cucamonga. If you don't know, that's like one of the more wealthy areas of the Inland Empire, which is in the Southern California. And we were in a place where we were living good for about 1.5 years, 2 years. We're living good. Excuse me. Because, we actually, my grandparents had passed away, and it was really a heartbreaking situation. We were living in Carson, California. My mother ended up selling the house, and of course, in my grandfather's will, she got this amount of money. And so my mom said, you know what, instead of us struggling, because we were struggling then, she said, we're going to go someplace where it's away from LA, away from the gang culture that was building in Carson. We're going to get somewhere where the air is clean and life is just going to be good. We're going to get furniture, and you guys are going to all have your own rooms. It was just beautiful, right? So we move out to Rancho, and my mom had quit her job, and she actually finally accomplished one of her dreams of writing a book. And so she was writing a book. She wrote a book, and she invested money into it. And, it didn't do exactly what she wanted it to do, what she envisioned it to do. And she ended up investing a whole lot more money into it than she got back. And really after that transition, and because I wasn't working at the time, I was really trying to get my beats off and sell them hand to hand for dirt cheap, because I was in a new area trying to get my name out there. I had to go get work, and I could not get a job. This is the same time that you're having the sort of the 2009 market crash, and the housing crash and whatnot. So it was a hard time for a lot of people, and my mom was trying to get back into work, and that wasn't really working out. So long story short, we got evicted from that particular townhome that we were in, and my mom ended up moving to Compton. I ended up moving to San Bernardino, which, if people don't know, they had one of the highest crime rates where I'm from. And I moved there to move in with one of my independent, move in with the head of my independent label that I was part of called Black Cloud Music. I stayed with him. He had a 1-bedroom apartment and couldn't really afford to have me there, especially if I wasn't contributing. But I said, look, I can give value in other ways. I was helping out with things at the label. But fast forward past that, we were basically living in poverty. He had a job. We were still living in poverty, right? And so I was trying to sell my beats in the email. I was like, oh, my God, I really got to sell these beats just to eat, And one particular, few months, I had the opportunity to work with a high-profile artist. And, mind you, I got a placement during that time with this artist named Glass Malone and Mac 10. I had a placement. Would you know that I was so broke that I could not afford to buy the Source magazine that my name was mentioned in?
Damn.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's that same liquor store that I couldn't afford toilet paper, but I'm getting ready to get to that right now, is that I couldn't afford, mind you, my name is circulating everywhere right now. Like, yo, who's this young producer in Southern California? Like, he really had a standout track on this album. Mac 10 is a legend. Glass Malone is a West Coast legend at that time. And so it was a big deal for me. I couldn't afford the magazine. The guy that I was living with, my buddy Jinx, had to buy the magazine for me. He even had to go buy the CD because my car got evicted the first month that I was there living with them, because I got the cable bill, and then the people who need the repo found it, and then they got my car. I had pictures, I had clothes, I had things I couldn't get out of that vehicle because I couldn't afford to get to the place, couldn't afford to get it out of the place. That's a whole other story in itself. But really, I had an opportunity to work with a high-profile artist, and I know it's getting long-winded, but I really want to drive this point home, is that I got an opportunity to work with this high-profile artist, and through my management, they were like, look, if you keep funneling beats to this person, this person's going to change your life. This album's going to change your life. So I made 86 beats in 3 months. Whoa. And after that happened, this artist said, I have to take another direction, and unfortunately, I cannot release this project, so we got to put it on ice. And mind you, I was getting promises like, yo, this project is going to help you get a new car. Your whole life is going to change. Right. And then after that 3 months, I was drained. I couldn't do it. I hit an all-time low. And one particular morning, when I experienced my first nervous breakdown, it was when I had to go use the restroom, and I didn't have toilet paper. I was looking through the couch for change, couldn't find it. Only thing that I had in that apartment was this rough notebook paper. And I just felt like the all-time humiliation of how the hell did you get here? Mm-hmm. And from that point on, when I reached that low, and I really felt like ending my life. I didn't feel like this was. I felt like what am I doing? All of this success for what? How do you call this success? And really, I was kind of away from my family at the time. The way that I overcame that, is crazy. At the moment that I was getting ready to make a terrible decision, I saw a picture of my little sister in the corner, my little sister Paige. I saw a picture of her, and, I don't know how it happened. I know it was divine intervention, but the picture fell off of a bookcase. And I looked over, And literally, like, I just started bawling down in tears because I realized that this is not about me. It's about them. This is about when I first started making music, I said, I want to change my mother's life. I want to change my sister's life. And family is what kept me alive in that situation. 3 years after that, though, life changed and I got into this production game. And honestly, man, like, I went from making $150 a month to $5,000 a month. And it just, everything really changed. And it wasn't because of somebody putting me on. It wasn't because I waited for a favor or a handout. It's because I got off my ass and I had to get to work. Mm-hmm. So what got me through it, honestly, in the beginning was family. And then I found purpose. When I found purpose, I found energy. I found motivation through listening to Les Brown and Tony Robbins and people telling me, look, I don't care how bleak your situation looks. People have gone from worse situations and made it happen. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry, I know that got long-winded, but that's in a very long-winded version. That's how I overcame that situation.
No, that's actually great, because what happens is a lot of people, they haven't gone through certain things. So, the story isn't like long, i.e. it's not descriptive. And when it's not descriptive, it's not real. So the fact that you kind of know every point, you know exactly where you were at, that makes it even so much more realer for myself, for other people listening, and that much more relatable as well. So it wasn't long-winded at all, man. I really appreciate the vividness and the descriptiveness, because when you tell stories, that makes your message so much more powerful.
Absolutely. I agree. That's why, like, when I tell these stories, there's probably tidbits in my mind that I'm like, I could have left that out. But I think that it's important to really help folks get into that place where it's just a level of hopelessness that, you can't teach somebody. It's hard to teach somebody who has been brought up, a certain way. Your mind has been framed a certain way, not just by parenting, but by school, the schools and the way that they teach their students and the way that they don't motivate their students. And, I was coming from LAUSD, where a lot of the teachers didn't want to be there. They didn't want that job. Coming under that mindset and to be able to flip that switch, to be able to rewire myself and, listen to the folks that I listen to, I got to tell the entire story for you to understand how bleak things became and how much they've turned around for the better.
Absolutely, man. That's real. And I appreciate you and applaud you so much for being vulnerable per se and sharing everything and not just the good stuff. Because that's how you get more respect, is when you share, the bad stuff and your losses as well.
Yeah, that's one of my regrets with my peers sometimes, is that the interviewers would tell them, like, look, tell us your story. I got shot a few times, came up, now I'm making money. Right. And it's like, you want to tell us some more details? I know this is the more glamorized part of it, but tell us, like, get the same way we listen to like an Elon Musk, or we listen to, a Bill Gates or even a Steve Jobs, or somebody tell us, from their very humble beginning, this is what it was. Mm-hmm. They're not making it a sob story. Like, this is what it was, from very good details. I was sitting here. This is how I created this multi-billion-dollar business. It happened like this. There's more value in that, and really looking at it from a human aspect. We're here to help one another. We really are. That's golden. That's the life. The secret of life. The foundation of that is giving. Mm-hmm. And it's the one thing that I think that most people, not even most people, a lot of people are missing the point on, and that's why they're not living the lives that they want to live. You literally can give yourself, you can give away your value to getting your first $1 million or whatever goal that you want. You can give your way to that goal if you commit yourself to it. And I'm living proof of that. You're living proof of that. It's a strong concept.
Yeah, very, very, very strong. I think it's underrated, but it is very strong and very powerful. And you will never see the benefits if you don't do it without, giving it all.
Right.
So yeah, man. So where can people find out more about you? One more time.
Sure. So you can find out about me at CurtisKingBeats.com, or if you're on the social media, Instagram and Twitter is the same at name, at Curtis King with 2 S's. So CurtisKing. But CurtisKingBeats.com is really where I have all of my courses. I have many different courses from teaching music producers how to build their own websites from scratch. And I have courses that deal with how to make beats. So if you have a young beat maker in your household or somebody that you want to get involved in making music and eventually get involved in this particular business and really make music for a living and love what they do, I would encourage you to get the FL Studio Beginners course. It's something that's so simple that one of my sisters could sit there and learn how to make beats, after sitting through that course. So I have things like that. I have rapper courses on there as well if you want to learn how to make your own website. But CurtisKingBeats.com is really where I house everything. And, I appreciate the opportunity once again, just to be able to share with your platform my story and, just my journey thus far. So thank you so much.
No problem. And we already know that the story ain't even over. We just got to a new chapter. So I know you about to turn up even more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And shout out to Jasmine, too, who linked us together. So Jasmine Powers, thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with that being said, we're gonna stop the show right here. Guys, if you're listening, if you like what Curtis had to say, hit him up. Let him know, how the interview was, how he impacted your life, and all that good stuff, because we really love hearing about, how the interviews went, what your thoughts were, what your take was, and everything like that. So that's today's show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Listen to his story, Curtis's story, and we're going to talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Starts with a Vision podcast. Come get your vision clear at www.startswithavision.com. See you there.